Hello and welcome to Naomi's Bookshelf for the worst books of 2020. So in 2020, I had a very good reading year and I don't feel like many books deserve to go on a worst list. So I'm only going to do a bottom 5 instead of a bottom 10. So we're gonna go with number 5 on this list being Middlemarch by George Eliot. This one was really hard because in some ways it's almost not deserving of this spot, but it was very boring for me and very disconnected, and I just didn't like a lot of it. I felt like I was okay when I was invested in certain areas, but I just was blah. It's just not, it wasn't the book for me at the time at least, and I don't know what else to say. It follows a bunch of people in a county called Middlemarch, and there's apparently 2 main characters, and I don't believe that. I think it's just an ensemble cast of characters, and I understand a lot of people love this book, but for me, it just wasn't worth 800 pages of reading, basically is what it comes down to. So that was disappointing and very frustrating to read. By the end of the book, I just was starting to get invested, and at that point I just didn't care because it was already at page like 800 or something. So yeah, number 5. Number 4 on this list is Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, Little Women and Why It Still Matters, I believe is the title, by Anne Boyd Rowe. This one was kind of just boring. It's a nonfiction about Little Women and why and how it has impacted society. So it talked a lot about different people it has impacted and how it impacted, how the films impacted people, how the filmmaking went, which I found the filmmaking parts interesting, but I just found it to be very redundant or very repetitive with information. And it was just a kind of a book I really should have just put down, but I wanted to finish it and it wasn't that long, but it just felt very, very repetitive and slow for nonfiction even. It was even slower than that. So yeah. The next one on the list is The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. I have said lots about this book. This book is the fictional starting, shall I say, of the Jane Austen Society in England. And I think that there's a really good story to be had about the original starting of the society, which I know you can't really do too much with because it's real, but that would be an amazing story. And this was just fictionalized to the point of just being overdone. I felt like she tried to do way too many plot lines in a very short amount of pages, and the characters weren't I couldn't attach myself to any character because we only spent 1 chapter with them and then we moved on. I didn't care about any of them because I could not connect. And then the plot lines were all too scattered, or if they were intentionally like surprise shock value, I was like, that I never connected to that person anyways to get that, and even if I did, it didn't make a difference what my feelings were on that. So that was a big miss for me. So number 3 on the list. Next up is The Postern of Fate by Agatha Christie. I'm very sad that this is number 2 on my list for worst books of the year. I felt like this one was a very big downer from her normal quality of books for me. This one follows Tommy and Tuppence as they buy an old house and they discover an old potential crime and they're trying to investigate it. But it just felt like everything was really convoluted or very over the top or over dramatic. The characters in here were just extra in a not a great way. And it just, I don't know, this one lacked her normal charm, and this is something that I would not recommend to someone unless you're wanting to read all of Agatha Christie's work. That would be the only reason I'd recommend you reading this one, because otherwise it's just not worth it to me. And number 1, the winner of the worst book of the year for me is 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. Yeah. I have ranted about this one a lot. This one was very dry and very boring. I cannot believe that I read a book where the first 300 pages took place where silence was required from all the guests, all the people, all the characters were required to be silent for 300 pages. And that was just, it was not plot driven at all. It was not character driven for me because I didn't care about any of them. And I just didn't get to know any of them in any way until the end. And by that point, it was just too late, too little too late. And so the first 300 pages of the 450-page book were completely dry, completely boring. I forced myself to read. Then it started to get a little interesting. I started to care a little bit about what happened, but I genuinely didn't care about the characters. I just wanted to know, oh, that sounds interesting. I wonder what's going to happen next. And then the last 2 chapters, I was like, wow, that could have been an entire 100 pages right there. And she just threw it together in 10 pages. So I feel like the pacing was really off with that book. And the characters were just, not great. It was the biggest miss of the year for me. So that was disappointing and very frustrating to have the worst book of the year be Liane Moriarty, because I really enjoy her other books. And I really want to read her other books still. It's just that this one I think was the biggest miss for me. I do also want to make an honorable mention for Mary B by Catherine Chen. I know I didn't finish this one, but I rarely DNF a book like I DNF'd this one and firmly decide I'm never going to read it again. And that was this one. So I DNF'd this one at 50 pages. And I'm officially never going to finish that book. So Mary B was officially probably the worst book I read this year, even if I didn't finish it. That is the end of my worst of 2020 book list. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these and what are your thoughts on them. I'd also love to discuss them with you down below in the comments. Please also like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you would like to. And I will see you tomorrow for another day of Bookmas. Bye for now.